Just want to let you know, for our next session, I'd like to welcome Adriana Gliga-Belavic. Adriana is the leader in cybersecurity and privacy practice at PwC and leads the payment services practices in Canada. She brings more than 20 years of consulting experience in the areas of information security, privacy, and payments security in Canada, and the US and internationally. Her focus in the last couple of years was in helping organizations build trust with customers in payment solutions while enhancing data security and privacy. Please join me in welcoming Adriana.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to keep up with the theme of our previous conversation. Hopefully, I'm not going to scare you too much. But I think it's important to talk about what are the changes that are happening. We heard before technology is changing in a very rapid pace, and how those changes are going to impact us as consumers, but also the organizations that we are working with. So the pace of technology changes are increasing. One of my colleagues said it very well in another presentation, saying, this is the slowest we have seen going forward. So what our customers are looking for, if you are anything like me, I'm not a morning person, so I like to just get up and go. I would like to just order my coffee from my phone, from my watch, from inside my car, and just pick it up on my way to work. But our customers are expecting us to make sure that the payments are safe, fast, seamless to them. They also expect us to bring additional things into the payments. They want to bring loyalty things, customized ads. So this has led to innovators, such as technology companies, in bringing more services to the customers. So the ecosystem in the payments is changing. What we have learned from other jurisdictions, more than 40 countries have gone through the process of payments modernization and also open banking. If we look at somewhere like Australia, who it's been about almost a year since they went through the process, they have seen not a very great adoption of faster payments, with some of the organizations feeling that they are not really prepared to start doing this. Even financial institutions. Last time I talked to some of my colleagues in Australia, they said only one of the banks felt comfortable enough to join the faster rail. If we look in the UK, where the government mandated some of the changes going to open banking, customers are more comfortable having third parties access their information in their accounts and providing them with additional services, such as maybe understanding what their payment patterns are and budgeting better. But still there, customers have not been confident in giving third parties access to their accounts to do payments on their behalf. So with all this change come opportunities, of course. We can reach more customers, we can do faster things, we can help organizations provide better services, but also come challenges in terms of how we are going to protect this data, customer data, and also the privacy of customers. So I guess the big question is, how do we preserve customer trust going forward? And we heard this yesterday. Customers will trust their financial institutions right now, how they are going to trust everybody else who enters the ecosystem. So what are we going to look at going forward? Some trends and insights. What is the payments modernization processes going through in Canada and some of the open banking, and how are the cybersecurity and privacy risks evolving? So the payments infrastructure is changing. We are tending to go towards real-time payments. Fraud is a lot more public. We learn about it all the time. cybercrime is the #1 reason for fraud these days. Canada, unfortunately, is behind the curve in protecting against fraud. Our organizations, either in financial sector or in technology, are still finding that they need to work with innovators to bring artificial intelligence and advanced analytics into the fraud models. And we'll see how, from a fraud perspective, even though we see that 55% of the Canadian organizations report being a victim of a fraud, they are not doing very much to protect themselves. If we look on one of those top 5 trends, we see that in Canada, cybercrime actually is the highest trend for fraud. So external attacks are still the highest in fraud. I don't know if those are changing. I see changes in my slides here. But internal attacks are not that far behind. So as Canadian organizations, we really need to seize the opportunity to do better in fraud prevention. If we look at how organizations are doing in Canada, 41% of them are not even doing risk assessments to understand what the risks are. And about half of the organizations have no plans on looking at advanced analytics and AI. If we look at the evolution of cybercrime, I think last panel yesterday at the Fire Chat talked about the evolution of attacks. So ransomware has been something that we talked about quite a bit over the last year. But these are progressing. So as we see the real-time payments coming to Canada, the cybercrime is going to change towards the new technologies, things like mobile, things like phones, watches, houses, connected cars. And by the time the real-time payment plans are to come to the consumers and allow other organizations than financial institutions to participate in this rail, AI and biohacking are going to be at the forefront. So as we looked at what happened in other jurisdictions, what we are seeing is we are not facing the same challenges that they faced. The technology is changing at such a pace that we are facing a lot more challenges in Canada. So the payments modernization is not just meant to be a technology upgrade, but the plan is to really have a platform for innovation to support Canada's competitiveness in the global economy. So the opportunities that the payments modernization are going to bring: process improvements, leveraging RPAs to gain efficiencies, to do things faster; open banking to provide clients with more insight on their spending trends, on their transactions; but also the adoption of the new standard, the ISO 20022, will allow messages to have a lot richer data that will speed up the process for settlement and bring more money to our pockets faster. So I think what's driving all this, obviously, customer needs. Better access to services, better insight into their transactions. But from a security and privacy perspective, customers really trusted the banks with their information. Now, their expectation is also that whoever entered the ecosystem, being a technology company or being an innovator, needs to pay as much attention to their data privacy and security. So let's talk a little bit about what are the challenges that we are faced with. Richer payment data means you can make more money if you attack these rails. So obviously, we'll see an increase in the attacks on the rails. Significantly less time to process a transaction will mean less time for somebody to make a decision if there is fraud in that transaction. The fact that we have more devices connected will mean there is a larger attack surface. But also, there will be more channels. So now organizations will have to think about how they are going to approach their way of identifying the attacks and maybe look at integrating their services or their tools for detecting these attacks across the channels. So for example, for a financial institution, if historically they had things like fraud monitoring on different channels, like the retail banking, the loan, the mortgage, now they will have to figure out how do you look across those. We are so mobile today. So how would an organization that I, for example, have a credit card with, will identify that I bought a ticket to travel to another destination? And once I got there, I'm the same person who is trying to make an application for a loan, for example, because I decided I'm going to buy a vacation property there. So how organizations are going to react to that and how fast they are going to react to determine if I am the right person who is making that request or somebody is trying to commit fraud. The new entrants, obviously technology companies, innovators, they are really trying to bring new services to the market. So as a result, everybody is very excited about making it work. So what are we left with? We are left with an ecosystem that actually is very fragmented. We have the financial services organizations who've been regulated, who've spent a lot of money on bringing their security and privacy practices up to date. And then we have the new entrants who might not have had an opportunity to get there. So faster payments will mean we have to make faster decisions. Once the payment is gone, it's gone. We have to go from 24, 48 hours decision-making to nanoseconds. So why we are saying faster fraud? There will be more opportunities. There will be more devices connected. We have seen, and I think the panel before me just talked about an increase in the attack from insiders, insider threat. So this decrease in employee loyalty, it's another avenue that fraudsters can use to commit fraud. And we talked about technology. Technology is changing every day. We are looking at how we are going to use advanced analytics and AI to deliver these services. Well, the fraudsters have the same technologies. So they are going to be using the same technologies to commit fraud. They are also collaborating. We heard both panels last night and today talking about the attackers, the bad guys, like to collaborate, like to share their tools and tactics on doing it. So the capability for attacking, it's increasing. And then as customers, with faster payments, there will be more payments. And with more payments, more spend, which could lead to the customers being part of that fraud increase as well. So what can participants in the ecosystem do to address it? So we talked about we need to have a capability to do dynamic decision-making. The ability to detect fraud in real time. So how can organizations do that? I think there is an opportunity for us to look across different tools and techniques that we have and identify how those can collaborate, how we can fuse together those capabilities, being fraud, being maybe AML, and cybersecurity, to identify what are those points within a transaction that are the most significant points of interaction that can help us make better decisions. We also need to look at integration. So if historically we had silos, how do we integrate those systems today? And not just integrate them. So I was talking to one of the financial institutions not long ago about the fact that they need to think about fraud differently. It's not enough to just say, OK, I'm just going to integrate all my tools. And the person I was talking to, they said, well, you should have told me that 5 months ago. We just went through integrating our tools, and it was very painful. Because what I find, instead of just looking at what technology you have, you should be looking at what are the use cases that you are trying to solve. How the attackers might think of misusing the information that they have across the payments lifecycle. And then decide what technology you can use to help you identify those or solve those use cases. So we need to make decisions very fast. So we can use historical data and machine learning. But historical data, with all these changes going on, are not going to provide us with all the information that we need to make decisions. So in addition, we have to look at unsupervised machine learning to identify new fraud cases, new threats. We have to look at how do we collaborate, how do we use our information, but also information from others. Can we create consortiums? If we are all on the same rail, how can we benefit from the information that we have across banks, across technology companies, across merchants to make better decisions? The bad guys are collaborating. Why shouldn't we? And then you need to be agile. You need to be able to use the information that you get to create new models. So it's all about managing risk. And it's not just about technology. We need to look at people, processes, and technology. We need to identify what the risk is before we can manage it. So most organizations I work with, they don't even have a risk management framework. We need to look at privacy by design. The customers are going to be expecting that they have control over their data. If I am to accept that a third party does something with my data, I want to be in control to say who I want to have access to that data. We talked about advanced fraud monitoring and integrating solutions. But also organizations and as CISOs, we have to look at where our organization ends. It's not the perimeter anymore. We have partners. We have third parties that are working with us in managing our data. So somebody asked me, who do you trust? Well, we are in security. Trust but verify. You need to have a very strong third-party management program to ensure that you get comfort on how the third parties that you are working with, how your partners that you are working with are protecting your data. And if we look at the most recent breaches, we can see that there is always a third party that somehow had access into our environment, and they didn't have the same stringent controls within how they monitor their endpoints or access management to get access to our environment. minimize the data is one thing as a payment professional that I tell all my clients. You don't need it, don't keep it. Because if you keep it, you need to protect it. And then how do we look at advanced authentication and digital ID? And is there a role for digital ID and new standards to actually help ensure that when a transaction is initiated, we trust who is initiating it? Collaboration between different parts of the organization, cybersecurity, privacy, the fraud and AML is also becoming very important. And monitoring use cases and being agile and developing those use cases is becoming paramount for organizations. So it's all great. The changes to technologies are advancing. So my challenge to you is, are you ready for it? Thank you. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. No? Sorry, I can't see. OK, thank you very much.